Suba, Member of Parliament, and of course Alice Wahome, Kandara, Member of Parliament. Welcome to the Power Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
So, a deadlock, is it?
I think he knows whether it's a deadlock because
What do you say?
on our part we finished our business. We've finished putting the members together, because what happened is that we split the teams so that because I sit in the selection committee, he does not sit there, but the selection committee agreed that the ODM with their affiliates with their affiliates, we give them their numbers.
How many?
Pro rata to their strength in Parliament, the seats that they brought in, and then we also took the other section of numbers.
Which means what? In terms of real numbers, what does it mean?
14, 10.
We have about 216 members of Parliament, including our affiliates, and they take the rest.
So they'll get how many seats in both committees?
Well, I think with the actual numbers are not yet agreed, because you know, that is where the hassle is. But we have 19. Most committees are between 11 and 19 members. Others are 29. So the numbers are not exact for each committee. Others are 51, like the budget committee that they want to chair. The PAC and the PIC are between 11 and 19 members. So if you take pro rata, I think we shall be having just about 3 or 4
more
extra.
Members.
Yes.
Mbadi, what is the issue?
Well, I can't call it a deadlock or stalemate, but probably let's term it disagreement. I have experience of sitting in last Parliament, and I do know that these disagreements do come up quite often, but finally they get resolved. The problem is how fast then should we resolve this stalemate, because it is not good for this country. I would tell you it's going to interfere with our work as parliamentarians. Right now we have 2 critical assignments ahead of us with regards to budget making process. The division of revenue bill is before us, having left, we are left with very few days. And also the budget estimates, the partial budget estimates. I like calling them partial budget estimates because I realize that we didn't receive full budget estimate. So we really need to get over this issue as fast as possible, but I wouldn't call it really a deadlock per se, yes.
Yeah, we are sitting this morning at 10 o'clock. The selection committee will meet this morning at 10 o'clock.
The allegation is that previously anyway, it was the opposition that took those committees. The party that was not in government, and because of really its oversight. You cannot oversight yourself. That's the argument.
Actually, let me go maybe before Alice. I think first of all we need to ask ourselves, what is the relevance of these 2 committees? Why should we have them in our parliamentary system? I think the 2 committees are basically their job is to look into the accounts. They are supposed to examine the accounts
when they come from the Auditor General.
Correct. So the work of Public Accounts Committee is to examine the accounts of government ministries and departments with a view to ensuring that the appropriations that are made to various ministries and departments are spent effectively and efficiently. And so they are oversight, they are watchdog. You can call them, if you like, audit committees. Therefore, in terms of good governance, transparency and accountability, it calls upon Parliament to, or any civilized democracy, to cede control and management of those committees to that party which is not forming the government. And therefore, if you look at it in terms of good governance, which our constitution calls for, and good public finance management, then the opposition or any party that is outside government need to have control of those committees.
But of course, the concern has been that this was actually a plan even in the 10th Parliament to make sure that the standing orders do not necessarily bring in the place of the opposition taking charge of the audit report. And now, because things didn't work out, especially for the CORD team, now they're basically pushing to have control of the audit report, audit committee.
Let me answer it this way. First, mischief, whether from CORD or Jubilee, is unacceptable. If that was the mischief, then I really pity the people who are involved. But let me say that this to me sounds more like a propaganda. If you look at the people who were present in that parliament on that night of 9th of January, the composition of that parliament, certainly it could not be the mischief initiated, championed and supported by ODM then. You can see the membership. Look at even today's paper. Look at the composition of the people who contributed to that motion. Look at their political affiliation. You will get most of them were from Jubilee. So that is a real pure propaganda, because that last parliament, the current CORD had even minority then. Remember, towards the tail end of that parliament, ODM had lost its majority in real terms because the URP had taken off with a huge chunk of ODM. So whoever is coming up with this propaganda that it was a CORD-initiated move to deny opposition its rightful role of oversighting is misplacing the argument. For me, whoever did, even if it was a single individual or a group of people who initiated that move to deny and remove the express provisions of Standing Order 187 and 188 of the old standing orders, which was very explicit that the oversight committees need to not only be chaired, but have a majority of one from the opposition. That person is not a friend of this country.
But
or whoever
it happened. What was the reasoning?
The reasoning, in my view, I've had, because I was not present in Parliament then. Remember, the ODM nominations were on 17th, and this was on 9th of January. I left Nairobi just before 1st of January, and I never came back until after my nomination. But what I hear is that the argument then was that we are moving to a pure presidential system, where Parliament is supposed to now oversight the executive. But the reality, that to me is a very academic argument. If that was the argument, then I wish I was in Parliament then. I would have articulated a better argument. Because even though academically you can say Parliament is divorced from the executive, but realistically you cannot. Because the President of the Republic of Kenya comes from a political party. And in this case, the President and the Deputy President both come from Jubilee coalition of government. There are members of Parliament, including my friend here, my colleague here, who is a member courtesy of Jubilee government. You cannot divorce her from the government run and headed by Jubilee. It's not possible. It's just academic on paper.
What do you say?
No, I think yeah, I'm protesting because my good friend here, Mbadi, is very aware that we've changed. The new constitution now gives Parliament a different role than it was before. The oversight role, because three key roles for this Parliament is to oversight, representation, and of course ensuring that the registration is taken up and of course speeded up. When he says that the CORD is supposed to be oversighting, then he's removing the Jubilee coalition from the oversight role. That it's its own function. All members of Parliament have a function that is spelled out in the Constitution to oversight the government. And that's why we have now clear separation of powers between the judiciary, the executive, and of course the Constitution, the commissions are the fourth arm of government. We have now 4 distinct arms of government, and we must avoid conflicting of these roles, because that's what we are now talking about, good governance that he's talking about. He knows that the standing orders as we speak now do not give the CORD or the opposition, because even in Parliament we are not calling them opposition. Minority. We are actually calling them minority, and we are the majority. So there are different terminologies, but there is some hangover of the previous functionalities of Parliament and the executive. We are saying that all of us have a duty. We are accountable to the people who we are representing, to the country, not to the government of the day. Oh, of course, the opposition can also render the government useless in terms of functioning, in terms of implementing. And therefore, the members of the Jubilee, who are, of course, their courtesy of the Jubilee coalition or their parties, must also facilitate, see where they need to oppose or to oversight the government, but also ensure that work for the government is not stalled because of unnecessary disagreements like the current ones, because there is no basis right now in the standing orders that we must actually relinquish the chairmanship what happens at all the committees in Parliament, members are put in the select committee pro rata to their strengths. Parliamentary party, those who have a parliamentary parties numbers, and in fact even independent candidates will find space within the select committees, because we have divided select committees and the departmental committees. These are basically dealing with the ministries, the government departments. But we meet as those committees and do an election. We could agree unanimously, but basically you are supposed to conduct election to come up with your chairman. But we sat and agreed in principle, looking at good governance principles, corporate governance, that we allow the COD to chair. That we did out of goodwill. He knows if we were to go head on, it's a matter of numbers. And we do have the numbers. But they have even threatened to say, no, we are not going to bring any members to fill in the committees. Of course, apparently, for you to send the committees to the House, to the floor of the House for approval, you need all parties. And they are taking advantage of that. And if they take advantage, they are sending the wrong message very early to the Jubilee and also to the majority. Because the minority can also have some dictatorship of some sort, you know, blackmailing the majority that you must give us, we are the oversight. I think, Mbadi, you must agree that it's not every member of Parliament that is in that will sing the song of the government of the day. I think it's presuming and assuming the registrators in a very bad way. We cannot accept that.
I'm yet to get any example of any country in the world where, no, just a minute, any country in the world which has a pure presidential system and has allowed park and pick to be controlled by the government in power. That is the party that formed the government. I'm yet to get that example, because we have so many countries practicing pure presidential system, but you still find the watchdog committees are chaired and headed and controlled by a party that is not in government. But anyway, having said that, I think this is not blackmail. I want to remind my sister that really from our side, because COD is basically ODM and Ford Kenya and Wiper. ODM in the last parliament had majority. When we came after the 07 election, we were in a very difficult environment, much more difficult than today. And that is why I say there is no goodwill. Because at that time we sat and we felt for this country to move forward, we need to agree, give and take. And we did give and take, and we allowed PNU to have majority in almost 50% of the committees, not even talking about watchdog or whatever. We agreed that we share the committees, and that is what we did. Actually, PAC had more of PNU, and PIC had more of ODM at that time, and many other departmental committees. What is lacking at the moment is what we call goodwill. In fact, if you ask me, the standing orders can be amended on a daily basis. Just 2 weeks ago, when we realized that these standing orders were not serving us with regard to standing order number 164 of these standing orders, the current standing orders, which talks about the chairing or presiding over house business, and that issue I'm the one who raised it. And we quickly made a resolution on the floor of the House in a matter of seconds. And right now, the 4 members of the Speaker's panel can preside over business of the House. We even went ahead and made amendments, quick amendment, or to increase the number of PAC and PIC from 16 to 26 to accommodate most of the more members. The motion, it was moved by Honorable Duale. I seconded it from the minority. So if there is goodwill, these standing orders, if our colleagues really feel that they are also convinced that PAC and PIC should be controlled and shared by the minority party, as it were in the old standing orders. What we need to do is, one afternoon like today, bring an amendment to the House through the Rules and Procedures Committee. That is why we formed that committee before any other committee, so that these rules can serve us. These standing orders are meant to serve members of Parliament. If we realize that they are compromising the integrity, they are compromising the oversight role of Parliament, then we have the right to change them. But what is lacking is goodwill and chest thumping, grandstanding, feeling you have the majority of the tyranny of numbers. And I want to remind my colleague, these things we call tyranny of numbers may disappear anytime. The dynamics of politics is so fluid. In fact, after 3 months from today, you may be shocked that the CORD and Jubilee may not be the same architecture you see today. So I think we need to humble ourselves and talk to each other instead of talking at each other. That is very important for this country.
We'll be taking questions, of course, to the audience. Remember, from the viewer, you can actually send your questions to 2442. That's 2442. We have Karanja Robert from Thika says, we elected all members of parliament to have oversight on the executive. They are all legislators, so the threats by CORD are out of order.
I don't think CORD has issued any threat. I think what we are saying is we are asking our colleagues from the other side that being the majority means you are also the party that has produced the president and the deputy president. The president and the deputy president plus the attorney general and at most 22 cabinet secretaries form the executive. That is the definition under Article 152 and Article 130. You need to oversight that body. You cannot oversight it if you are sharing political party with that same body. So that is why we are saying we are not asking to chair the departmental committees. You can chair them because they will be articulating and introducing government bills and motions in parliament. But these two critical committees are watchdog. They are oversight. They are audit. You cannot audit yourself. You cannot even audit your father. It is unprofessional. It is immoral.
I think that's where we are going on. We are saying we are in a new dispensation. And that's where the dichotomy should be seen. We cannot continue doing business as usual. If we have given Parliament a new role, we want to see this Parliament behave differently from 10th Parliament in terms of its functions. And if they continue insisting that because we have come from the Jubilee, we are definitely going to say yes, I think then that is packaging the Jubilee members of Parliament in the wrong section, and we are not ready. We are not actually ready to be coded that way. We refuse, and we want to take our role as oversight, because otherwise then we don't have any business being in Parliament. And that's what we are telling them. They should trust us that when an issue requires to be looked at critically by members of Parliament, all of us in that committee need to be convinced, because you know the committees will work together. And if we started wrong here, on the presumption that we are the government and they are the opposition, then we've lost it.
But let me just ask my sister. I remember at Safari Park Hotel, the parliamentary group meeting of Jubilee was chaired by none other than William Ruto, who is the deputy president, a man who sits in the executive, and a leader who is number 2 in the executive. He is the one who chaired your PG. You are the PG at State House. How then do you divorce yourself from the executive? Let us not talk academic.
That is wrong.
Let us be real.
We did not have a leader of majority at then. No, we did not have a leader of majority.
Honestly,
so we needed somebody to assist, facilitating us come up with the leader of majority. And once we've done that, all our meetings, the parliamentary group meetings, will be led by Edan Duare. I think...
no, but that's just an example.
No, you say
you cannot
he chaired
divorce,
the parliamentary group.
But it is on record, unless we were misinformed,
no,
that the parliamentary group meeting of Jubilee at Safari Park, which elected the majority leader, the whips, and the deputy majority leader, was actually chaired by Honorable William Samoei Ruto.
The procedure
so I don't see how you divorce yourself.
The deputy president was present during the meeting, but the purpose for that meeting was actually now to set up the parliamentary group, because we did not have a leader. And once we have had that leader, we've been now working, and I think that the last time they went to Naivasha, I saw the Honorable Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. I'm sure he still have a place in terms sometimes of moderating.
Even today they have called a meeting.
Of course,
even you have
of course, even today, Raila Amolo Odinga would still chair our meeting, because we know he is called. And that's why we are saying, we also know Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, Honorable William Ruto are Jubilee. You cannot divorce the two from the Jubilee. And that is why we are saying you cannot oversight these two individuals, or at least the government that they had. The same way you don't expect CORD, if Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka formed government, to oversight, that you expect Mbadi to oversight Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga or Kalonzo, their government. It is not workable. It is theoretical, but practically it is not possible. That's why we are asking you.
I think the mistake we did is to concede that they must chair. Then from there, they now want more numbers. And that these committees would have been completed last week, because of course we are working, and they are trying to use the time factor. Nobody has time. We need the budget committee going. We need all these committees running this week. And you see, if they start by behaving the way they are behaving, using the time frames, then it is obvious that they have no goodwill, and that we should not concede more ground. We concede more ground, we are not going to be able to move things. And that's why we are saying that let's now operate under the law and use the procedures are there, the rules. And they could also bring the amendments. I think any member of parliament can bring the amendment to the standing orders. As we speak now, if we did it differently, it would be an illegality. He knows that.
No, I don't think
if
so.
we concede more in terms of the numbers, because either you have the parliamentary strength or you have numbers within the seats that you have. So we are saying, as we speak now, we cannot even concede the strength in terms of numbers.
I don't think so.
And also, we did not go to campaign when we get the numbers, then we leave them to them. I mean, look, they must use what they have.
Kindly, it is not really asking to be given majority in all committees, where we are talking about the watchdog committees. Let me put it this way. Even if you read the Standing Order 174, which you people keep on referring to, it's not that explicit that the numbers should just follow the strength of parties. It says that the select committee should try as much as possible. The same way it talks about even the gender balance. It's not that the gender must be 30%. It says you should strive, a third. You should strive to hit it.
It gives consideration, and he knows, to gender. It gives consideration to independent candidates because they don't have a party, those kind of interests, but not the minority to be given more extra strength. I
wanted to say that really it is not the question of taking the chair. I think we need to understand this. The chair does not have a casting vote in parliament. The chair of a committee just has an original vote like any other member. And I would hate to see a situation where I'm called upon to chair a watchdog committee, very critical committee, and then my reports don't find their way into parliament because they have been killed in the committees. That is what we are saying. Do not give us and take away and blame CORD that you are allowed to chair, but you have not done your work. I would expect Jubilee to allow CORD to chair and also control the committees, so that if they have issues with those reports, they still have the plenary. But those reports somehow should find their way to the plenary so that the people of Kenya are made aware of what is in the report. And possibly, if the reports are defeated, then it will be in the court's public opinion.
What do you think will happen?
What I think will happen is that we will agree. These disagreements, if you ask me, sometimes they look so big, but by the end of the day, people sit and resolve them. I tell you, we had more serious disagreements in 2008. And when we realized that we needed to move forward, and that time was not on our side, we asked the two whips, then Honorable Thuo and Honorable Jakoyo, you go and sit and agree. And once they sat and agreed, they reported back to the various parliamentary groups, and we endorsed. And that was it. So finally, we ended up forming committees with ease. Even this time, if we can stop and avoid this grandstanding and chest thumping and talking about our...
Both of your people look like they have that attitude of grandstanding.
Sometimes people talk to the media.
Last time we had agreed within the selection committee that because the disagreement is not affecting some of the important committees, we leave the PIC and the PAC, and then we forward the budget committee, for example, so that we can move on working in areas that are very critical. Also the procedure and house rules, which again is quite vital, but still the grandstanding continued, and they said with no agreement on the PIC and PAC, you give us more numbers, then we are not going to produce not even the other committees. So, you know, when you start blackmailing, then that is where we are finding that possibly there is a hidden agenda.
The danger with that proposal, the moment you allow them to form those other committees, the remaining committees will be the watchdog committees. Who would want to be watched over? They can cripple the activities of those committees for 5 years. And that is what we are saying. We are not going to accept to form other committees unless we are doing all of them, because they are all important, including the watchdog. So we know the mischief of Jubilee is to try to form other committees and leave the peak and park dormant. And that is not our interest. As God, we want to watch over.
Just a couple of concerns here. We have Martin from Nairobi. He says the executive is Jubilee, and if involved in corruption, they cannot audit themselves. Perhaps you could also respond to this. This is Joseph from Ruiru, says Jubilee wants to be players and at the same time referee. It's not acceptable.
Yes. You know what we are saying, that is this parliament can move. The court are feeling very affected by this. By now, they should have brought an amendment. We lost last week. Nothing has been brought. But also Kenyans have not yet understood the new role of parliament. And that's where we must continue, reminding them that the role of this parliament is different. The constitution gives a new role to parliament. You know, the executive was in the house in all the other parliaments, but now the executive is not in the house. So it is a new function. And the continuous labeling of the Jubilee as government is actually misinforming Kenyans, and we must set the record straight from the onset.
Yeah. Another one that is related to that, Maina from Laikipia says, why can't court accept the new reformed parliament? Every member, whether court or Jubilee, have equal roles.
I don't think he's getting really the gist of the argument. The gist of the argument is the reality on the ground is that the party that has formed the government, or the party that is controlling the executive, is Jubilee. The same party cannot have its members claim to be completely divorced from the government. And that's what we are saying. But if you, there's something Honorable Alice has just talked about. Why can't selection committee bring an amendment to the standing orders? If you strongly believe that it's the standing orders that are a hindrance to your ceding ground to court, why don't you bring an amendment the way you did with the other amendment, so that we approve it? Secondly, it is not these rules, it is not the standing orders, because if it is the standing orders, how come you are willing to donate 3? Who allowed you to do that? It's because these standing orders are flexible in terms of forming
there
the
were negotiations,
yes.
And when the negotiations reached the point where they even indicated that they are giving no other names into the other committee so that we can move, we realize that it's today you are being asked to give this, tomorrow this, and finally, we will concede all the ground, rendering the work of the committee also useless. I think that...
so it is not the standing order.
I think
because
that...
if you could give out 3, it means the standing orders have not blocked you from giving out 4.
There is little discretion, but there is so much that you cannot give everything. We are talking about parliamentary committees and majority. And if you look at the performance of the court in terms of the selection committee, the membership in the selection committee, there is an obvious hidden agenda to cripple the work of these committees. Because also PIC and PAC have a role. And if they cannot forward a report into the House, then also those committees could actually be rendered useless. You saw last parliament, one committee, the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, completely did not work for a year. There was also another committee that was taken over in terms of chairing by the Speaker. We don't want situations like that. And I think we must...
That committee of Ababna.
Yes, Ababna, there was the fights were throughout there. And this is the kind of thing we are likely to see from the behavior that we are now seeing from
What do you say about that?
Absolutely.
No, for me, let me put it that really, if there is anyone who is trying to interfere with the smooth running of Parliament, that person cannot be supported. And I cannot support any attempt to stall operations of Parliament. But having said that, there is no one side that you can blame for stalemate. Even the one on Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, I'm very much appraised on what transpired. It came as a result of a report that was questioning the appointment by the President of the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and the DPP. And that committee was, there was interference from the external forces because that committee came up with a report that actually indicted the President. And actually, the committee was proved right later. But immediately after that, that is when the problems in that committee began. So you cannot blame it even in the leadership of that committee. You cannot blame it on the leadership of Parliament. It was actually external from other quarters. But what I'm saying is, as members of Parliament, we really need to guard against this divisive kind of politics, because it's not healthy. I will tell you, in a short while, I sometimes see many of us taking hard positions and trying even to play something close to psychophancy. But give it a few months, 3-4 months, when now your electorate will start holding you accountable, that we want you to fight for our rights and not rights of an individual. That is the time you'll realize that you need to play your ball differently.
In fact, let me pick it from that point even as we wind up. We have Milka, very concerned. She says, it is worrying to hear this debate. Can the MPs work for Kenyans instead of parties? Can they give Kenya the best option in all issues brought before them and stop arguing over positions? What are your final words?
I think we must look at us as members of Parliament, and that's why we are saying the composition of committees shall compose of a certain number of members of Parliament who are independent in terms of their functions, in terms of their thinking, and once issues are brought before the committees, it's for them to look at those issues, you know, subjectively. I mean, I would expect objectivity from every member of the committee, and therefore the fears that are being expressed at this stage may completely be unfounded. I don't think the 28 committees are basically going to be outfits of directions from the executive. It's just not possible, because there are 28 committees, and every member of Parliament is likely to sit in 2 committees, that is one departmental committee and one select committee. And he knows that is how we are dividing that. Every single member will. It's just that the numbers are not equal, because the strengths are different. We cannot shut our eyes from that. We went to campaigns, we brought in numbers, and they have an impact in Parliament. They have an impact in running of the government. They must accept that. ODM, you know, last year, gave the coalition government a big headache, because there would be issues every now and then. So, and I must say they were doing their work, yes. But you see, we don't want that replayed in this. This is a different setup altogether. Let people be satisfied with the strengths that they have brought in Parliament, and we move on. He is saying maybe in a month or 2, we will be very good friends. We need to start working so that we can know where actually we, you know, where we give in and take. But for now, everybody is safeguarding their ground, because it is important. He knows they are trying to increase their strength because they don't know how we shall behave. It is true. Neither do we know how they will behave. So we must be very careful as to what we give in at this stage and how we move, because we must also run the government. Kenyans are waiting.
Actually, a point of order. I mean, she's slightly out of order when she says that ODM gave previous government headache. ODM was part of government, so it could not give government where it belongs headache. That government was for PNU and ODM 50-50. So whatever was there was disagreement within government.
Within the coalition.
So it was not really ODM giving or PNU giving the other side. They were both giving each other problems. But having said that, for me, I think we moved from, we didn't have the selection committee previously. The constitution of committees was a preserve of the House Business Committee through the whips. Actually, the 2 whips were bringing names, and that was it. We created this selection committee thinking it would solve the problem of an individual sitting somewhere and dictating who should sit where. I thought this committee should be helping us resolve some of the issues that we have. And it is worrying me that this committee is failing at this point, and the leadership of Parliament, which has even been expanded in a way. We have now leader of majority with the whip and the deputies, and minority with the whips and deputies. So can we, as a way forward, that message, let me put it that we are not fighting for positions here. I think what we are fighting for is what is under Article 10(2)(c) of the Constitution. We need we need to have transparency, openness. We need to be accountable. You can only be accountable if the Parliament's watchdog committees. We have confidence that the Parliament's watchdog committees have the capacity to oversight the government functions. Otherwise, if we don't have that confidence, then from the word go, we'll have lost it. My last appeal to Jubilee Coalition, we have so many committees. You have the majority in all of them. You have the control all over them. Please allow the minority to oversight you in these two critical committees. Allow to be audited independently from the opposition or minority, if you may call it.
All right. So that wraps it up. Of course, we hope when they meet this afternoon, they will sort out all those issues. Of course, talking to John Mbadi, Suba Member of Parliament, and of course, Alice Wahome, Kandara, Member of Parliament. We'll be right back.
Thank you.